thank you for letting me back on this platform. Getting into this story right here, I have a debatable question that I would like to hear feedback from the viewers that view this video and know their opinions about.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
This act that I'm going to explain right here is one of the most psychotic but yet debatable acts that I've ever seen in prison. I've never heard of it before or after. So after you've done listening to this story and viewing this story, we would love to hear your opinions on whether or not that this was a cowardice act or if it was a brave and psychotic act. So here we go. Yeah, I've been sharing a lot of experiences from people to certain situations. And I'm going to take it all the way back. I'm going to take it all the way back to like how everything started for me when I first came to prison. Like the whole experience to it, everything, what it was like. You know, you have this whole perspective of what it's going to be like from watching movies, you know, from Blood In, Blood Out to American Me to Felon to all these movies. And you develop this little mindset of what you really think it'll be like. And then you get there. And I just got sentenced to 27 years in prison. 27 years, 2 strikes at that. I was fighting 56 to life on a second-degree attempted murder because I shot somebody when I was real young. And I didn't even realize the consequences to my actions at that age, in that mindset. And they call it catching the chain when you're in the county jail. They call it catching the chain. And what that means is that's the day that the transportation buses are going to pull up and everybody who is cleared to go upstate, they call it upstate because all these hubs and reception centers are upstate in the state of California. So you catch this chain and all of us that are cleared, everybody who got sentenced to their term, we all are waiting to catch the chain, and then the transportation bus comes, and right there in Riverside County, they take us to Delano, to North Kern State Prison. And anybody who goes to prison when you're getting locked up,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You'll hit a reception center before you actually go to your general population yard. And these reception centers are set up to evaluate you and classify you depending on and based on your disciplinary behavior in the county jail, how long your sentence was, what your crime was, and things of that nature. So you go to whatever your hub is, whatever your reception center was. And for us, it was Delano. It was North Kern State Prison. And I remember I was itching. I'm on this transportation bus. Anybody who's been on one or anybody who hasn't been on one, everybody knows that transportation sucks. That's like one of the worst experiences in prison is transporting because you're shackled down. But it's not just your average shackles. They put you in these cuffs that are just so tight and you can't lift your arms up. You're pretty much stuck in the same position with all this heavy chain armor on you, and you're stuffed in this bus like sardines. And people are packed into these seats to the point where some of them are even in the aisle. They're in the middle of the aisle. That's how jam-packed they are. CDCR, they don't care. They're just going to stuff as many guys on a bus as they possibly can. It's not even probably it's probably a violation of our rights more than likely the way that they do it. But you're stuffed in these seats and you're on your way, and then you see reception center. You'll see it, and you're like, oh, I remember I'm feeling it, and my heart starts thumping, and I'm like, oh, man, I'm really starting to get to prison. So I start asking all these other dudes who've already been to prison, like, hey, what's reception center like, man? And they're like, oh, man, you know, it's cracking right here. They're going to be sending me to this yard. They're probably going to send you to this yard because you've never been to prison before, and that's where they send the generalization of people that are coming off these buses that have never been to prison before. It's B yard. At that time, it was B yard. And it's exactly where I got housed. There was a homeboy named Wicked from IE Skinheads. I remember him clearly. He was blasted all over his face. I had no tattoos. And when you come to prison, you see dudes with nothing but tattoos, and you see a lot of gang members. You see all walks of life. Prison is nothing but misfits of society. That's the way I like to label it, because that's what it is. You meet some of the most psychopaths, the worst of the worst people inside prison. And you meet all kinds of strangers from all walks of life. People you don't know their upbringing, you don't know their childhood, and then they're going to stick you in a cell with a complete stranger in a tiny little cubicle, and you got to get to know this person. You don't know what's going on inside this dude's head. You have no idea. So, you're getting upstate. Once you get in the reception center, they let you off this bus, and you see all the guards, just like the movies. You see them up there on the catwalks, holding their mini 14s, keeping protection for their officers that are taking you off the bus. Once you get off the bus, they stick you in these holding cells. In reception center, it's an all-day thing. They put you in this holding cell. They're stripping you out of your county clothes. When you get off the bus, they take all your clothes off and you're completely naked. And they stuff you in a cell with like 30 dudes that are all naked for like an excessive period of time. We're just standing there waiting for them to bring us a pair of clothes. And it's so humiliating. It's so demoralizing and embarrassing, standing in a freaking cell next to a bunch of dudes naked, waiting for someone to hand you some clothes so you could put them on. And then they do. And they toss you your clothes. And they don't just give you a good pair. They always find the most raggedy pair of clothes that they can find, and that's what you get. You put them on, and they're stretched out. They're, loose around the neck. They're one pant leg higher than the other. You just never know. And they strategically do this because that's how they want the experience of prison to be. Then they give you these little sack lunches, and they house you. And I remember going, now I'm in prison. I'm officially in prison. And it's my very first time going to prison, and I hit B8. I hit 8 block, and I meet this individual, and, everybody is segregated on general population. You're only going in with your own, so you're just hoping that you get somebody who's compatible, someone who's worth living with, and then you wait there for about a good month. Some people 2, but usually it's like a good month or 2, 3 tops, and then you're off to where your destination is. And for me, I had a late fee sentence. I've been in all kinds of fights in the county jail, caught a case in the county jail. So off the top, I'm level 4, and I'm headed on my way out to Calipatria State Prison, level 4. And when you get there, C Yard, Calipatria C Yard is orientation yard. That is where everybody goes when you arrive there. Now, it's not like that anymore. This was back in 2006. 2006, I land there, and I go into C3 orientation. And I remember walking in there because they got the perforated doors. But before you enter the building, your heart's racing. You're brand new. No one knows you in prison. I mean, some people do, but, this is a level 4 prison, and I've never been there before, and you can hear everybody being super loud before you even walk in the door. And being that that's the orientation building, they're always waiting for, they call them fish guys. They're waiting for the fish guys to arrive, which is us. And there's a few of us that just got off the bus, and we're going in there, and you hear all this hooting and hollering, and you're like, man, what are my eyes going to see once I step into the rotunda? You step through the rotunda. As soon as you walk in, everybody's flashing their lights. Everybody's yelling. Everybody's trying to see if they know you. I'm looking around to see if I know anybody. And this is a level 4 prison, and I've heard all the politics. I've heard all the stories about it. It's a no-hands policy, which means if it's not worth stabbing over, then you're not allowed to do it. Basically, in translation, if you get into a fist fight on a level 4 yard, there's going to be repercussions. There's going to be consequences to it. So I get my cell. Luckily for me, I got housed with one of the dudes that I rode the bus with, so I had already got familiarized with it, and they stick us in this cell, and they close it. And it's controlled by the tower guy. We're not allowed to control the doors ourselves to our doors. They control it for us. Some prisons are like that. Some prisons aren't. And as I'm in there, me and him are like, wow. And my cellie, who I just got bunked up with, he was a lifer. He was just coming to prison just like me, young just like me, but he was doing life without the possibility of parole, which is a big difference from what I was doing. But now we're both in prison together, and we're experiencing this both at the same time. And there's nothing like that feeling of when you first show up to the very first yard. nothing like it. But as we're sitting there and we're getting our stuff unpacked, off the top, someone's going to come and they're going to clear your paperwork. And here comes an individual who's all blasted down, and he's like 6'2", and he's real healthy, and he introduces himself. He says, "What's up, bro? My name is Gorgeous Nazi Lowrider." So we introduced ourselves, and me, I was such a serious ball at that time. Like, I didn't really joke with nobody. I was in a mindset of the world. I really didn't care. I didn't think I was even going to make it to the other side and get out of prison anyways. I felt that I got a life sentence without a life sentence. So I introduced myself. He takes our paperwork. He looks at it. And as we're interacting, see, I was brainwashed to thinking that I have to behave a certain way, that I have to be super serious because it's a level 4 prison. And everybody, most of the dudes that are there are doing life for murders or attempted murders. It's violent offenders, period. And he horseplays with me. Through this little interaction, he horseplays with me, and I took it the wrong way. And he steps off the door, and he went there, and he didn't know I was upset. I looked at my cellie, and I'm feeling some type of way. And I'm angry, and I was an angry person at this time, so I started immediately finding an object that I could make a shank out of. And my cellie looks at me, he's like, "Bro, what are you doing?" I said, "Bro, I don't like the way that this dude just talked to me right now. When he comes back, I'm going to pull him up on it." He's like, "Hey, bro, it wasn't that serious." I said, "Well, it is to me. No one's going to talk to me like that, because if I allow the first person to talk to me like that, then everybody's going to think it's okay to talk to me like that, and I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to go ahead and set precedence right now." And he comes back in the middle of our exchange of words, and he kind of catches the vibe coming out of the cell, and he asks us if we're okay. And I just came out wrong, and I thought what I had planned to approach him with my words, it came out completely wrong, and I just hit him with it. And I'm just like, "Look, bro, you think you are talking to me like that?" And he's like, "Excuse me?" And one of my homeboys that happened to be his cellie, I've known him. He's done tattoo work on me. I've known him since the neighborhood when I was younger, is right there and shows up at that same time. He was coming to bring my homeboy over to introduce me as I'm popping off at this dude. So my homeboy immediately intervenes, right? And I'm like, he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "I don't like how this dude talked to me." And he thought I was just playing around with him, but I wasn't playing around with him. And I told him, I said, "If you want to get this door cracked, bro, get this door cracked, bro. No one's going to talk to me how you just talked to me." And my homeboy intervenes to the point where he tells Gorgeous to leave. He tells him, "Leave." And he says, "Powder, what are you doing?" I said, "I don't like the way he talked to me like that. This is a level 4 prison. I'm coming in doing 27 years, and I don't like the way he talked to me. I'm not going to let people talk to me like that, period." And he said, "Look, bro, you need to watch how you're getting at people. This is Gorgeous from NLR. This dude's got rank. This dude has a reputation on this yard. He's going to go bring it to the yard now." I said, "I don't care." He said, "You are going to care. You're going to end up getting yourself stabbed, Powder. What are you doing? You need to mind your manners and understand what horse playing is, and understand what joking is and what disrespect is." So he talked me into letting it go. And when you're on orientation, you can't go out to yard until you get classified. But just a couple of days it took to get classified, and it's our very first yard. This is where you hit your very first yard, and you get to see the territory. You get to see where your area is.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So this is our very first yard. This is where you get to meet everybody. This is where it all gets real. Now, everything I've told was everything up to this moment. Now I'm getting ready to go out to where the fellas are and get to experience prison, level 4 California prison, where it's known and treacherous for nothing but stabbings. At this time, at this year, Calipatria was known for their stabbings. Not only are they known for their stabbings, but they will have a stabbing and resume yard 5 minutes later. That's what they're known for. That's their reputation. So I go out to our very first yard. Best believe I brought my shank with me. Best believe I wasn't leaving the cell without my knife. It was a plastic one, but it'll do, because at this time, something had happened in Calipatria where some East Coast Crips had ran inside the program office and stabbed the entire administration, staff, the sergeants, the lieutenants, the captain, ran inside the program office and did that, a whole group of them. So they made adjustments to where the program door is always locked, there's fences around, and there's metal detectors now established in Calipatria. So I remember we go through our little gauntlet of being searched. I'm on my way out with my cellie. But, you know, on your very first yard with your cellie, you don't trust nobody. You have no trust in nobody. You only trust yourself, okay? Because you don't know who's who and what's what yet. So you're on your way out there, and as soon as you go out there, there it is. All you see is everybody. You see nothing but serious faces. You see all these Hispanics. Down south, there's no Northerners on the yard. This is at a time where it's either blacks, Southerners, whites, or others. That's it. And the others, that's like the Samoans, the Asians, Arabians, Native Americans, stuff like that. Everybody has separation to them. As soon as you walk out there, you see all these youngsters with tattoos on their face. You can see all these grown men who look like they've been down for 30, 40 years, and you know that it's serious. You can just feel the vibe. And you don't really know where to go, so the woodpile is already aware of your arrival. So they're already waiting for you. It's mandatory yard. You're not allowed to miss yard, especially on a level 4 prison. So they're going to come find you. Someone always comes and finds you, and they take you and show you to where your people are at, where your tables are at. And as you're walking, you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful of bumping into people. You have to be very careful of crossing boundaries into other people's territory. There's rules to this. You're not allowed to cross them, or you'll be disciplined. So once you get to your table and once you get to your area, someone's going to inform you of where you're allowed to go and where you're not allowed to go. These pull-up bars are ours. Those pull-up bars are theirs. That way you're not using other races' exercise equipment. You're not allowed to do that. This is a level 4 prison, extreme politics. You have to have respect at all times. That's the way it is. That's the way they train you. Then they'll tell you, they'll pull you to the side, and usually it's the person who has the yard. And at this time, it was an individual named Jamie Maddox from Fresno. Jamie Maddox from Fresno, he had that yard because he was tipped up. He was juiced up. He was just a regular wood, but he stood about 5'10". He had a bald head, goatee, and he was mean. And he had LWAP. He had nothing to lose. Life without the possibility of parole. And he got plugged in to a brother named Michael Holland. Michael Holland was a secretary in Corcoran Shoe. He was a secretary for the Aryan Brotherhood. Eventually ended up getting made. As soon as he got made, he did some really, really shady stuff, stole a bunch of money, checked in with his brother Jason Hollins, and gave up where all the cell phones were, gave up where all the drugs were, just gave up the whole stockpile.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
His career as an AB member only lasted a night, basically, and turned around and screwed him in the end. That's how that happened. Took all the money. There was a P.O. box where people were sending a tribute money to a certain Aryan Brotherhood. Usually it goes to the commission, but this dude was short-stopping it because he had already had plans. But at this time, he had major juice. At this time, he had major juice with the AB leadership, and that's who gave Jamie the yard. Jamie was plugged in with this dude. You could not even touch this dude, Jamie, without him. If he felt the need to, he could put you in the hat. He can get you green lighted in a second. All it would take is one kite or one letter to his boy, and you're through. That's a fact. Well, this dude, Jamie Maddox, was pushing a hard line. Only problem is with Jamie Maddox is he was a real bad dope fiend. He had a really, really, really bad drug habit. Probably some of the worst that I've ever seen. But he wasn't a Christian addict. So he was already physically dependent on it. And when you're in charge, anytime you're in a leadership position, especially any leadership position I've ever been in, never do drugs. You run those positions while you're sober because your thinking is off, just like his thinking was off. He was so caught up in being strung out on heroin, he lost his way. Next thing you know, his addiction took over, and he's in debt to other races while he has the yard. Now, let me tell you something. Nobody is exempt from these woodpile politics. Nobody is exempt from owing other races and not being able to pay them without consequence. So there was a lot of commotion and controversy going on at this time when these other races, and he owed the blacks, he especially owed the blacks a lot of money, and that is frowned upon the most. And me, I'm just a youngster sitting there absorbing this, and I'm taking this all in, and all the respect that I had for this dude, I was losing it. But like I said at the beginning of this story, you meet some crazy sons of bitch place. You meet some horrific ass people, treacherous ass people. And so during the midst of all this controversy, this dude Jamie decided to set tone and lead by example, and this is what he did. And I know this for a fact because I've seen it, I was there, and it was horrible. So he was in the same building as me, and he's going around looking for brand new razor blades. Not the ones that the state gives you, but the ones that you get like out of your store or out of your package, the ones that are extremely sharp. And he goes and he makes himself a tomahawk, but not just your average tomahawk. This freaking tomahawk had so many blades on it that it looked like a box cutter by the time he was done with it. And he went in his cell and he whacked himself across the chest, across his chest. Not once, but twice. He carved on it. So he was bleeding out up there. Came out the next day showing everybody, showing the wood pile, this nasty scar that he just put on his body. Who is psychotic enough to whack their self and come out there and broadcast it to everybody like it was some sort of trophy? This is what kind of stuff was going on. This is how crazy people are in prison. I'm just a little youngster. I'm sitting back and I'm going, bro, that's crazy. How did you have the ability to make your own weapon? Look yourself in the mirror. I asked him that too. I asked him straight up. I said, hey, Jamie, let me ask you a question, bro. Now my respect for him that I had lost, I wasn't sure if it was back or how I felt, if I respected this guy, if I didn't respect this guy. All I know is this dude was crazy because I couldn't do it to myself. I don't know anybody that was willing to do that to themselves. They actually take a blade and run it across your chest. I've never seen, to this day, I've never seen a razor scar that was nastier than that. And he did it to himself. He inflicted it upon himself. And he told me this. He said, Potter, this is what I did. I was so ashamed and I was so mad about letting you guys down. And the example that I was setting, I had no choice.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I could have let two dudes, matter of fact, I could have ordered two dudes to get on me, to stab me or whatever. But I wanted to me, was one of the craziest things I had ever seen in my life. And I remember when he came out the very next day afterwards, it was, the wound was still fresh, but he didn't care. He was a G like that. So he came out there because he wanted to show everybody. It really hurt him deeply that him being in a leadership position, that he didn't have enough self-control to be able to maintain his addiction, and he felt that he failed us. He felt that he failed every single one of his partners and every one of us active white men because he was the captain of the ship. And you're supposed to be the one that's leading by example. And he felt that way. And he came out there, and I didn't know what I felt. I had lost respect for him, and now I'm looking at him. But the only thing that I did know was
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Is that he was a crazy-ass dude. And I remember specifically pulling him up, and I say, hey, Jamie, what made you do this? And he looked at me, and he said, check this out, Powder. I could have had two dudes come get me. I could have ordered two dudes to come put holes in me, beat me up in front of everybody. But I thought that it was a lot crazier. I wanted to show everybody what kind of crazy mother I really am, so I decided to do it myself. And I remember when I was younger, I was confused on how to feel about that. I wasn't sure if it was a cowardice act and it was just a way to get off the hook and not having two dudes just ram you into the dirt, or if it really was a brave move that put himself back into good standings with us, if that was a redeemable act. I couldn't really figure it out. So what I did was, I remember this, I was brand new to prison, so I'm trying to learn everything, and I'm just tripping off this whole situation. I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of it again. I've been down for 20 years. So what I did is I went and made me a little razor blade, and I stood there in front of the mirror, and I looked at myself and thought to myself, do I have the ability to be able to do it to myself? Absolutely not. So it does take a certain kind of person to be able to do that and then come out there with all that shame and all that guilt and be able to come out there and admit your faults and take accountability for your actions. And I'm sitting here just absorbing everything. I'm strapped to the core, and I'm looking around, and I just tripping out on how I come to prison, and the dude who has the yard just whacked himself. And there was a lot of controversy on top of that, too. And one of my older homeboys was there that I used to idolize. It was Animal from PDS, standing about 6'4", bald head, goatee, PDS across his throat, Mr. Mike McMillan, one of the dudes that I used to idolize and look up to. And I looked at Animal, and I'm like, hey, is this justified right here? And he was like, absolutely not. Now, here's the thing. In prison, it's not, a lot of times it's not what you know. It's not about the work that you put in. It's about who you know. And coming into prison, this was the very first individual, because I talk about the first time I meet Aryan Brotherhood members. I just got done meeting a Nazi lowrider general. Gorgeous, was like a top dog Nazi lowrider. Now I'm meeting my very first dude who's actually plugged in with the Aryan Brotherhood, and he just whacked himself. So continuing on, I remember after this, these sequence of events, this is how I was just getting adjusted into prison. People think that coming into prison, you know, is super serious all the time. It is super serious all the time. It is one of those type of places and environments where you have to watch your back at all times, because you don't know what anybody's thinking. You don't necessarily know if somebody's plotting on you. You don't know what's really going on. All you know is that you're in a world full of nothing but psychopaths and people that will step on you to further themselves. If that's what it takes, they will sell you out in a second. So people who think that it's cool to come to prison, you want to know what it's really like living this prison life, listen to these stories. Listen to stories written by current prisoners, and you're going to get the best content and a front row perspective on what it's really like. And take it from us, because I've been down for 20 years. I've lived through it all. And this is like the very beginning of my history right here, the very beginning of when I first came in and what I was feeling, how I was feeling, what I had to deal with, what I've seen. And it's just a small fraction, a small portion of what I went through when I first came in. But that's what it's like when you're entering reception centers and hitting your very first yard. So thank you. Thank you for letting me get up on this platform and continue to share my experience. Thank you for always being there and checking out these views and listening to this channel, because I'm telling you right now, everything that it's produced is 100% authentic. Thank you.